Hello everybody, I'm Alco35 and I will try to record a video tutorial for those people that use DreamPoeBot for the first time. I'm going to talk about a lot of topics. I hope you follow me. DreamPoeBot, it's not straightforward if you approach it for the first time, so please bear with me. Okay, if you don't have access to it, please be sure to drop on HomeNetCore, find my post about DreamPoeBot and send me and request me access to it. It would be quite easy. So the first time you get access to the Discord channel and access to download the last release of DreamPoeBot, you get a zip file. You should just extract it in an empty folder or whatever you want. Once done, you can delete the zip file, and okay, this is the directory of the bot, the API, I should say, and this is the structure of the folder. There are a couple of really interesting folders that you need to be aware of, and those are, well, this third-party folder. It contains all the components. We can call them plugin, but it's not really the exact term. Well, all the components that you can use with the DreamPoeBot. When you firstly download it, it comes with just a few example components and some legacy program that was developed for another framework, really famous framework for Path of Exiled. And also a really important component is this Object Explorer. You will see it later, and it's basically a tool you can use to acquire information about the world around your character. The first time you start it, okay, well, it's worth to mention that DreamPoeBot doesn't start Path of Exiled. You need to start it by yourself. So just launch the client, the game client, and as soon as it's ready to start, you can start DreamPoeBot. It's highly advised to run it as administrator, because if you don't have administration privilege on your account, DPB will not be able to hook the game. So always run it as administrator. Okay. The first window that you will be prompted with is the language selector, but this is just a inheritance from the old framework. We don't have any other languages than English. You can safely select this auto select button checkbox. This way, the next time that you start DreamPoeBot, this window will not be prompted, but the English language will be selected by default. Click choose language. The second window you are prompted with is the profile selection, and a couple of other customization we can do on the DPB. So the default profile selected is this default. It's just a default profile created the first time you start it. If you want, you can safely use it if you don't need some special profile, but if you want some customization, you can change the name just by changing the name on the drop down menu to whatever name you want. Okay, at this point we can just choose profile, but if we do, the next time we start DPB, these windows will be prompted again. If you don't need it, I mean if you just have one profile and want to start it with this profile every time, you can select auto select config, and the next time you start DPB, these windows will not be prompted to you. I will not select it, but feel free to. Just click choose config and it's okay, it will start. This window lets you to select your key. You can enter your the key given to you when you download when you're registered to DreamPoeBot.com, and I activate your account. I do manually activate every single account because I want to do a little interview with every single user I get, and I want to keep the community a little bit safe. And well, it's a little of a madness, but this can ensure that we have a more friendly and peaceful community, and the bot, it doesn't spread too much. So just enter your key, whatever it is, your A, B, C, D, whatever, and when you're done, click out again. I will do it in another window. As you start, as it starts loading, the first thing that the DPB does, it's starting the Alcor 75 RD server, as I said, the pathfinding server. It's really important, well, it's not my fault, maybe it is, I don't know. It's really important that you don't, while DPB is loading, and as soon as this window appears, you don't click around, because it might happen that clicking on this window will lock it. And since DPB communicates with this console application through a pipe server, and due to the way this pipe server is done, it might be locked at the moment when DPB try to communicate with it and it fail to start. So please just be patient and wait until DPB fully load without clicking or moving window or doing anything. Just wait a second, and you will see this start button appear and clear and clickable. At this point, DPB is fully loaded, and you can even minimize the RD server. It's really important to know that the RD server, it's an independent console application. Okay, when you start DPB the first time, it will ensure that the Alcor RD server is running. If it's not, it will start it. But if it's already started, DPB will just connect to it and start using the communication. You don't need, when you close DPB, you don't need to always close the RD server. There is a really old and rare, super rare bug where the RD server, Alcor 75 RD server stop working for some reason, and you start to get some error from DPB while running, and the pathfinding it's not working. If that happens, be sure to just close the RD server, close DPB, and restart it. It will automatically reload the RD server and everything will be fine. Just wait for it to fully load, and once it's loaded, just feel free to minimize this window. Okay, let's get to the main window of DPB. So, there are a couple of components, really important components in the main window. Okay, the first drop-down menu represents the actual bot we are running. This is one of the most important components of DPB. It's basically the base logic that DPB will rely on to run the bot. And well, the only bot that you will get if you just download the plain zip file, it's nullbot. That it's just basically it's an example of what DPB can do. It's meant just to be read, I mean to read the code, nullbot, and try to understand how does DPB, how to work with DPB, how to code with DPB. You can easily open it with your text editor. It's really heavily commented, so feel free to take a look and see exactly what its function is meant to do. This will help you in case you are willing to develop your own bot. The next, and with this drop-down menu, you can select your bot in case you have more than one. The second drop-down menus represent the routine, and in DPB, a routine it's basically a logic for combat situation. The routine it's invoked by the logic on your bot in case we are in a fight situation, and this will control the exact logic you are using during the fight. The next really important feature you get, it's this render option. This will save a lot of CPU and GPU usage, because basically the images are not going to be rendered. Still, the game is running and things are happening in the background. You just don't see it. That even means that if you click somewhere, your toon will move there. Or if you click on an NPC, you will try to talk with him, and if you click on the stash, it will open it. Things are still happening in the background. They are just not rendered on your screen. Let's take a look at it. Look at this blinking flame. Adios. Everything, it just immobile, just not doing anything. But if I click on this option menu, still nothing happened. But look, if I disable the rendering, it has opened it. And again, if I click on the login and then I enable, it has logged in. What I mean, it's things are still happening in the background, even if the render is off. The only real difference is that your CPU consumption will be reduced by roughly 19%, even more. Really cool feature and really handy for virtual machine. So let's get on. The window behind the window below this is just the log window. Here you will be prompted with all the log information that you write on your code or somebody did for you. There is different kind of log level you can choose from. Full log will just display anything, every single log kind, while you can choose just to display warn, and this will just prompt you with the warn that I usually displayed in the yellow color, or none, just to save space on the disk, because the log file is wrote in the on your disk. And so if you are just want to ignore every single log, please keep in mind that it's not really suggested to do that while you are testing your code, because there will be no log in your log file. So just keep it full eventually and it's okay. Okay, on the top of the window you just have the actual version of the DPB. You have the PID, it's just the program ID of the game, the DPB Hooked 2, and if you click on the PID it will just focus the window. Okay, then you have the time left. This is the time left on your key, really easy. And last, on this side you have this cool setting button, and opening it will open the setting window. The program section contains information and option about DPB. Feel free to send me a PM if you want to know more about it. All the other menu, content, bot, routine, player mover and plugin are components that can be coded for DPB to do something for you. For example, bots hold the main logic DPB will run when you click the start button. I don't want to go into detail with this stuff because it will take a lot of time, so just I want to mention this. Content, it's some pre-coded, has some pre-coded functionality that it's called skill blacklist. Basically it holds a list of skill that will be completely ignored during the bot runtime. Why it's there? In case you want to completely ignore a specific skill you have slotted in your slots, in your socket, you can do that by refreshing the skills, and you will get a list of all socketed games. As you can see, even the exactly slot in which they are socketed, and the number after that, it's the index of the socket. And if I want to completely ignore one specific skill, for example an area, I want the bot to completely ignore clarity, never consider it while it's running its logic. I just can add it, and can add it adding its ID and name to the list of the ignored skills. The bot menu will hold configuration about your actually selected bot, and you will see, eventually you will see, if you have more than one bot, you will see all the other one, but they will be graded. Only the actually selected one can be operated. And eventually you will see a couple of options about that. Same thing for routine, player mover and plugin. There are still some whole heritage category for them. Basically official are just a list of component shipped with the default bot, while the other category, community and dev, usually main community, it's something that the community developed, some private developer or well, free content developed by some nice guy in the community. And this category, especially I think it's only on plugin, I'm sure it's only on plugin, dev, it's a special category that meant to collect tools used to develop and to help developer. I will get to that later. I want to talk a little bit about something else, that it's routine configuration. Most of you will probably use example routine forever, or at least till someone releases some cool new routine. But the routine might be really a specific topic, and so we will just stick with the example routine. I want to go through a little of some of the configuration on it and explain a little bit of it, because it's a little confusing. So let's try to explain how to configure and use example routine. The first thing that is worth to mention is the ranges. They are probably the most important part of the routine. The combat range represents the range you want the bot to try to acquire target within. First of all, let me show you a picture. This is a representation of what the range are for GGG. You can see this round circle around the first one. It's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, etc, etc. You can safely say that screen it's 85, 80 maybe. For, let's see what the minimum you can see, it's probably 50. But this gives you an idea of what range are for GGG. And so those numbers, if we select 70 for combat range, it means that we will take target within this range. If a mob is here, it will be completely ignored, not considered as a target. And so the bot will not engage it, will not start the fighting logic. Okay, as soon as a mob enters the combat range, it will be considered a valid target, and the logic will start to run and do its work. With this in mind, let's say that it's wise to not set a combat range too high, at the number too high, because the bot will start to chase mobs too far away. For what regard the other two options, this is quite important. This is basically how the routine select which kind of skill we want to use. If the target is within the melee range, the routine will select one of the two melee skill. If the target is within the ranged range, it will select one of the two ranged skill. How does it select single or area of the target? Using this option, AOE back scythe. Basically it means that if we have 3 or more mobs around our current target, it will try to use the AOE version of the selected skill, melee or range. If there are less than this number, it will use the single target skill. Lastly, fallback skill slot. It's the skill that it will try to use to attack in case all other skills configured are not available for some reason. It's a cooldown skill, it's we don't have enough mana, or whatever reason, it will fall to the fallback skill. Initially this was considered to be used just for you can safely leave it unselected, or you might want to do whatever you want. You can safely just select one skill and forget about all the other configuration, and it will just use this kind of skill. In my case, for example, I have Caustic Arrow and Toxic Rain. I want to use Caustic Arrow every time I get a single target, and Toxic Rain every time I get a pack of mobs. And so what I do is just select a single target, melee. It doesn't matter because I'm going to use just this one, so it doesn't matter if it's melee or ranged. And for melees, AOE, I select the 5 slot, Toxic Rain. If you have some more complex skill setup, feel free to configure it up to at your wish. Regarding the player mover, probably it has the same concept. Most of you is going to use just example routine. I want just to mention a couple of things. The default configuration, it's a really well-tested configuration. It works, and I must say that it's quite important that you don't change those numbers if you are not really sure you know what you are doing. If you change your numbers, you are alone with yourself. Leave them as they are. It's okay. The plugin category, of course, will contain all the plugins that you have installed. It's worth to mention a couple of things for developers especially. You get this dev tab. Dev tab, it's basically used to run sample code without the need to, well, load them. And so, how to use it? The really important function in the dev tab is this one, user coroutine. This is the one that will be executed. The other logic just make sure that you are in game, basically. So make sure that you run it in game, otherwise some others while logic would be run. But while you are in game, whenever you run the code, the log will spit out some strange stuff, and then you can see log information user coroutine. This is user coroutine. Let's make another example a little bit more fancy. Like log info format, and then this is a shortcut for a string format, and this way we can use curly bracket to add variables to the string. For example, I want to spit out my level, curly bracket, and that it's Loki POA dot me dot level, and look what happened. It threw an error because I forgot the semicolon at the end. Run code again, and it spit my level and still user coroutine. Well, you can do whatever you want it. There is something else I want to mention, and it's about running dev code and performing action in game. DPB will enable the hook on the game client only when you click the start button. By enable the hooking, I mean totally acquire privilege over the mouse, keyboard, over the game, and that means that you lose the ability to interact with the game, and DPB take control of it. If you want to run dev code that performs some action that require the mouse to be moved and click perform it or carry press it, you absolutely need to enable the hook, and you can do it in the dev tab by invoking Loki POA dot process hook manager dot enable. Okay, at this point, if you enable it and run the code, the dev tab with enable the hook, spit out the information and return, and the hook will be enabled when it exits, and this means you lose control of the game. To make sure that you regain control of the game after you're done with your code, it's really important that you disable it, and you can do it by just Loki POA process hook manager disable. This way the user coroutine will enable the hook. You can perform whatever action you want, click whatever you need, test whatever code you want, and then it will disable it and exit, leaving you still able to interact with the game. There is a lot of cool features in the dev tab, and you can do a lot of things, but you need to be a developer. And in case you need some information about it, just feel free to send me a PM. I will be happy to answer your question. Let's go on. The next tool I want to show is the Object Explorer. That is quite a nice feature because it lets you acquire most information about the game. Let's just give some example. You click refresh and get a couple of information here, for example your area, and on this window you get to read the exact information. For example, this the current area, it's at these properties: the name, ED, the act, it knows if it has a waypoint, and blah blah blah. Some really important information come from, for example, current player that represent yourself, In this category we have the buff on us. We are in town, there can't be any buff. Your skill that represent not only the skill on the skill bar, but all the available slotted skills. There is a quest category that represent the quest state of all the game quests for our character. For example, enemy at the gate, state ID 0 mean the quest it's finished. And this is the quest progress, complete, and some extra text. And you have this kind of information for all the quests. If some quest doesn't show up like this, it's null. It means we have not encountered that quest. We doesn't have acquired that quest, and so it's null. There is sometimes two versions of the same quest, because GGG does things in a really strange way, and sometimes their code is not so clean. So this is just an old version of the same quest. The list of quests is quite long, and you have information about them all. If they are still again, if they are null, you have not encountered that quest. This is mainly used to write QuestBot. Inventory has three categories: equipped item, equipped fire flask, and inventory flask. They represent basically equipped item, the item you have on yourself, on your like dressed. Equipped flask, it's the 5 shock slot for flask. Inventory item represent your inventory. Let's say I put my flask here and refresh it. Inventory item will hold the flask and all the information about the flask. I might probably talk for 10 hours about this kind of information. It's quite long. I really hope you take the patience to take a look at them, and if you have some request or you need some information, just send me a PM. I will answer as soon as possible. Some other information in the Object Explorer, it's a minimap icon. Basically represent all those icons in the minimap. Area transition represent the area transition present in the near you. For example, in this, in Lion Watch, we have the coast, and this is the area transition, and so you have some information about it and its component. NPC represent obviously all the NPC, and you can see them here. Player represent the list of player actually in the dawn. For example, this guy here. Well, feel free to take a look at it. There are a lot of info on the Object Explorer, and as usually, just drop me a PM if you need some detailed information. Okay, this is basically all I wanted to talk about in this video. At this point, if you have anything configured, you just press start, and your bot will start to do whatever you want. I will probably later try to record another video especially for FollowBot, because I know there is a lot of interest about it. But this gives you a really general idea of DPB, how to start it, and what it looks like. The last thing I want to mention here, it's something really important, and is this. It's super important, whatever you run FollowBot or any other bot, that you don't do this mistake, having 2 times a skill shocked in your skill bar. It's really important that you don't do that. Just be sure that your skills are there only once. There are not so many downsides on this, but it might become a problem at some point, and so just don't do that. It's useless. It's useless. Just take your time and configure your skill bar properly. Just your skill has to be there just once. The other super important thing is that the move skill, it must be in one key slot, not on a mouse slot. And you can acquire it even change your key binding. It's okay, but you need to restart DPB when you change your key binding. I really suggest it to leave it on T, R, E, W, or Q. It's okay. But it's one of those skills that will be used quite frequently, so it's important that it is on the first bar. If you decide to put on the second bar, the bot will need to press the second bar key every time you want to move, and it's quite annoying, no? It is, trust me. So just put it on the first bar and be sure you remove the second slotted move skill. Something else really important to mention is this, the default attack, but in general the left mouse click. This game is designed to use the left mouse click to interact with things. Let's imagine that I do this mistake. I put the move on the left mouse click and I just want to move and I don't want to interact with anything. If I click left click, if the bot wants to move close to the notice bar for whatever reason, it will require to left click here because the move skill is on the left click. And what it will do instead, it will click it and open that item. Imagine this item were, for example, a strongbox in a map with a lot of mob around us. We don't want to misclick it. So it's really important that the move skill is never in the left click button. But at the same time, let's replace it and make it okay. For example, if I want to, well, I don't care about the default attack and I want here to be Valgrace. Oh shit, it's another, oh it's okay, I remove it from here. Valgrace. So we are in a map, in a really bad situation and we need to use Valgrace. And still, for an unfortunate reason, we are even close to a strongbox. That might happen that, well, we try to activate Valgrace and the mouse, it's, well, near the strongbox for some reason. I'm just trying to make an example, real example. And we activate Valgrace with the mouse click. And again, the game will also consider that mouse click, left mouse click, as an interaction with the object under the mouse. And if that happen to be a strongbox or whatever, you will interact with it. And probably you won't. Same thing happen if your mouse it's over an item that you are not supposed to loot. You will still click on it because that Valgrace action will be performed with the click. And again, you will loot this item without wanting to do that. Many people send me PM about this misclick or stuff like that. This is the reason. Please be sure you understand this concept or send me a PM. It's quite important. Last thing I want to mention is about looting. I'm not sure if you are going to use it or not, but from my experience, it's quite important to enable a couple of options in the game. And the option I mean it's this one, hide filtered ground items, because this will increase the performance of your game. This will completely ignore from drawing all those items that are filtered by your loot filter, in-game filter. This is nice. And key pickup. To avoid misclicking over item and end up with all your inventory full of junk, you need to use this setting. Use bound key. The default key is F, and it's quite okay for me. But don't do this disabled. Every time your mouse will be over some item, and for some reason you have a skill configured on the left bar, left mouse slot, you will click on that item and it will be looted. That's how the game works. Okay, it will be like that even if you do that by hand. Just you will be more careful not to click on that item. So just configure it with the use bound key. It's quite important. Please be sure you never use this one. Use a light key for a simple reason. It will totally invalidate this function because to loot this item it will click the highlight key, and by doing so the game will render every single file filtered item, even if they are in your loot filter. They will be rendered. This will require a lot of CPU. Everything will be rendered from 0. So just don't use it. Stick to this use bound key and save it. Okay, this is more or less everything I wanted to talk. Last recommendation I will give you is to just if you are starting to use DPB for the first time, reset your key binding in game, because you might probably have some special key binding, for example for the escape key that DPB used to close all windows. So if you are in this situation, the first thing that DPB will probably do is just try to close the inventory window, and it will do it by pressing escape. And if you configure escape for something else, then it will not work. So be sure that you just reset your configuration. Yeah, here. Reset default setting. And that will be okay. Okay, this is everything I wanted to talk. Thank you everybody for listening to me. Sorry if I'm being too long. It's well, there is so many things that I want to talk about, and still there are many. But well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you, well, fell in love with DPB. It's a really super powerful tool, and you can do wonderful things with it. It gives me a lot of joy since many years. Okay, Alcor out.